Hello everybody, welcome to week 10 of Ray's Tech Tips. This week we're going to be talking about fuses and I don't know what else we're going to talk about. Ray, talk to the people.
Fuse holders and what fuses are for. I have circuit breakers as well. It's circuit protection in general. Protects devices and lines, current, for different current loads like lamps, coils. If you don't have a fuse or a circuit breaker to protect the circuit, it will melt the vinyl off the wiring because it will glow hot. And then eventually trip your main breaker, but before then it destroys. The circuit breakers, fuses are safeguards to prevent major damage. And they're designed by the manufacturer to protect what they're being in line with. And that's the purpose of keeping the rating close to what goes in the machine or the location of the machine.
Yeah, Mike at Mike at DK Custom was the reference. I think that he was the one that picked this topic a week or two ago. He said that every machine he encounters has the wrong fuses in them, and usually they're significantly overfused.
Yeah, it's generally done because of convenience. People just don't know where to get the right fuse. They don't have it. They're in a hurry. Some people don't even use a fuse. They use a piece of wire or a penny or wrap the fuse in foil. I've seen all kinds of stuff. I mean, if you want to sacrifice your device or your house, you know, the things you're protecting are like this. It's painted wood. If one does catch on fire for some reason, it's not going to stop burning. So you got to think about putting the right fuses in. Now, some devices as they age will demand more current on the circuit, and you can actually put a 1/2 or 1 amp higher rating in it. But
deliberately, yeah. Yeah,
generally the guideline is put back what was, because nothing like that ever really changes except for a mechanical device like a pitching bat, you know, for the bat that has a lot of mechanical linkages and bell cranks to it. That may need a higher fuse later as it ages, but you know, generally that's not an excuse to overrate circuit fuse.
Fatigue areas, fuse block holders.
Yeah, the reason fuses will go is not just because there's a bad device in the circuit. It could be just because of the fuse block. You have different kinds here. These are a strip you get. Mauser sells this, and you can break it apart into individuals. I have individual ones. These are singles here. Solder the end, the current load, and the device feed, and then the fuse clamps in here. These are for the 1¼ inch glass fuses, and then you have smaller ones for
were they MDL or
GMAs?
GMA.
Yeah, GMA is a designation for your little 7/8 length fuse. Plus, these are 1/4 inch in diameter. These are much smaller in diameter. These are actually metric. I think they're 5 by 20 millimeter.
And we're seeing those in the most modern Williams games.
Yeah, these are GMAs. They come in certain ratings, but these are 5 millimeter by 20 millimeter long. They're metric. These are measured in inches. These are 1¼ inch by 1/4 inch diameter is what these are. These come in MDL or AGCs. MDL is your slow fuse. AGC would be your fast acting fuse.
Okay, stop and explain all that, would you?
Yeah, a fuse needs a time lag if you're dealing with a motor or a coil, because by the time the device turns on and shuts off, well, by the time it turns on, you have an insurge of current, and what that means is it's going to take more than, well, let's say it'll have a 4 amp inrush, and then it'll stabilize down to 2 is the current load. Well, you need a slow fuse for that, because a fast fuse will trip.
Okay, and there are different styles of slow fuses. Like you have a modern one there, and then the older ones.
Yeah, you won't see these much anymore. They're too costly to manufacture, because you have this is fiberglass white wrap to absorb heat. Then you got your general element. Then you have a spring, and then you have inside of the white wrap to dissipate heat to give you the slow effect. You have your element, which is going to be the fuse rating. This is what they are nowadays. Now is fiberglass with a spiral tungsten coil or element. That is your modern MDL. These were too expensive to manufacture. They don't make.
And we're seeing in the machines that have the older style in them, they'll just fail on their own from fatigue. The spring will pull them apart, and they'll just give up.
Yeah, you won't see. If you see those, and they're sent to you as new, that's somebody's old stock. They are not made anymore. I order plenty of fuses from Mauser and DigiKey or Allied Electronics. Great Plains Electronics is another good source. You won't find those spring type MDLs anymore. They're not made, they're too costly. AGCs are just simply a straight piece of wire. They will trip quickly when they get near current load, whereas the same rating, 5 amp, will actually go up to probably 7 or 8.
Just a surge, and then
just a surge, then come down without tripping, and it'll live that way
for some time. But then even that will fatigue it in time and give up.
Right.
So I blow a fuse on my machine. What do I do?
Well, what you should do is measure with a meter set on amps. You can either measure amperage AC or DC. On pinball machines, you're probably dealing more with AC at the fuse. DC amperage would be measured at a coil, for instance, or something. But AC amperage across the fuse, you can put your meter and set it on amperage and set the dial on amperage. You can actually, with a no fuse or a blown fuse, you can measure across the fuse terminals. And you can find out how much amperage is going from load to supply.
With the fuse out.
Right, with the fuse or no fuse.
And
with a blown fuse or fuse out. This will tell you what the device is using when it's on. If it's a coil, you can go into test mode and fire the coil on and watch your analog bar down at the bottom here. You can watch the analog bar on a digital meter. If you have a sweep meter, it's going to give you the high end. It's much nicer to read that way, but nobody has sweep meters anymore. So when you're reading a digital meter, there's a bar that goes across down here, and that is your analog. That will go faster. That will respond faster than the digits. So you get your current load to find out before you put a new fuse in what your device is drawing on
okay, and it's a little bit of a delicate operation, because if you see a major spike there, you want to get your meter off of it immediately.
This is fused for 15 amps.
So don't blow up your meter.
Right, don't blow up your meter and don't torch your machine, but you can go on here with one probe dedicated tight, and then you can tap this and see what you've got. If this goes up to OL, which is overload, then get off of the other.
Yeah, go search for another problem. You got a dead short somewhere.
You got a dead short, but it'll at least save you from wasting $1 fuse over and over and over. Because I've seen this, people. I go out, there's a pile of fuses in the bottom of the machine. They're all blown. They call me to fix something, and they gave up because they probably used $20 in fuses trying to fix a lamp. GI is shorted. They keep putting a bigger fuse in it. I mean, you can go to 20 amp, but it's going to blow it'll blow anything you put in there. If you put a penny across here, or I mean a foil on a fuse, and you'll have a solid piece of wire there, or if you take your supply and jump it over, then your vinyl wiring is going to melt. The next weakest link will fail. You got to find out what's wrong. And it's nice to know what current load you have. On GI, I was curious one time when we started doing LEDs to measure what the 5 strings are on, like, let's say a WPC game. There's 5 strings for GI in each game, and when we LED'd them, I mean, I know the current load went down because LEDs are said to draw less current. Well, there are 5 amp slow blow fuses on each GI string, and they were running at about 3 to 4 amps steady during use on the general illumination, which is on all the time. When you go to LEDs, it goes down to under 1 amp, 0.8. So to 0.8 times 5 as opposed to 4 times.
So we've been singing the praises of LEDs for years now. It's easier on the electronics.
Yeah, you're only talking about 6 or 7 volts AC. It's not a lot of current, but the heat generated is amazing.
Well, yeah, it's easier on not only the components, but like artwork, back glasses. Yep. You know, you're not cooking the artwork on the back of your irreplaceable back glass.
Or translate, you know, it just...
We've seen where some playfields the GI is real snug in the holes, and it starts to burn the wood there. No more of that.
But you know, the fuses have tungsten elements, and tungsten is like an incandescent lamp. It will burn out just from use. They do fatigue and go bad. It doesn't signal that there's a problem with your device. So I'd say most of the time you can get away with putting a new fuse in where one came out. And the indicator of that is when you change a fuse that has been fatigued, it's just barely going to be broken. I mean, it'll be just a little bit of a gap. No explosion inside here. If you have a dead short, this is going to turn like silver. It blew up. And the bigger the fuse is, the more of it'll blow. But when you see a violent break in a fuse, you know you got a problem. Don't even bother putting a new fuse in.
Go looking for a
yeah,
short.
If you see a very minor fracture like a light bulb would have if the element broke, you've just got a fatigued fuse. You know. Now these are different kinds of boards. These are for in-circuit board fuse holders. You know. And these are the bigger ones for in-circuit board. These are 2s and 1s, but what they have in common is they're
They bolt
to be
down.
mounted. Yes, the circuit board equivalent of it would go through a board.
Talk about the fatigue that you see there. I mean, these haunted houses we just replaced the fuse blocks entirely.
Yeah, there's 8 of them on a haunted house in a row. You just take this, break this strip, and then you just use 2 screws and then just solder your wires on down each side. Just do them one at a time. It's easy.
Why is that? I mean, they look fine.
Yeah, no, these the old copper with the brown flat plate, they fatigue here. This metal does not clamp the fuse tight anymore like this. It does not snap. It just sort of floats in there. That thing gets hot. No current. There's a current difference from here to there.
You get a voltage drop because of the resistance
current drop.
Yeah.
A current drop and voltage.
Okay.
More importantly, current. You can actually have the same voltage and no current with a loose.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because it's if you try to draw,
and you wonder why your coils are weak and
resistant. Yeah.
This is where you see the big difference between our haunted house and their haunted
exactly.
house. Is components like that.
Yeah. Put this in regardless. I don't ever leave the old ones in. When I do a machine, I replace the fuse holders. It's true in video games, pinballs, anything. When they get up in years, you know, your new stuff isn't generally old enough to have this problem. But when you get back into your 80s stuff, which is 30 years old now, you need to put new fuse holders in. It's not a waste. It's not a needless step. And it actually adds power to your game. You're right. There's other variances of fuses. These are clips. These are for inboard
Repairs.
if you want to change. Yeah, this is without the plastic holder. There's individual clips. Circuit. Well, you've got inline fuse holders.
Those would be for like doing a mod, the Addams Family magnet mod.
Right.
Which is a good idea, by the way.
Yeah, it is. They never fused it. They fused it back at the power driver board, but it's too late by the time the serger or the short gets back there, and it's already melted the playfield and turned the wood all black. So the other type of fuses they're starting to use in some new devices are these stab locks.
Automotive.
Yeah, even amusement products are starting to use this type of thing. If you go back way far, they were using these in amusement products. No, that's back further than
Back further than those?
Yes, these were used in 20s and 30s stuff that...
and you stock them because you fix that stuff.
Yeah, I do, yeah. These were used in like ABT games.
I don't know what that is.
Exhibit Supply games, ESCO.
Who?
ABT was a manufacturer. Exhibit Supply, ESCO. They were used.
Games you played when you were a teenager.
Yeah, in the 20s. Yeah. And then circuit breakers aren't used too widely in amusement devices because they're too expensive. Yeah, they would rather use something like this than this because it's like triple the price or more.
Nice diagnostic tool though.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you can use this. If you don't have a meter and don't want to mess with it, you can actually hook clips and this will trip. Now the problem with these is they're rated at they aren't slow, they're always fast. So when you do a circuit breaker, there's no lag on it.
Okay, so
it's going to be AGC.
so
it's going to be
it
fast,
might give you a little bit of a false reading because you're getting 6.2, which is within range, but
Right.
you're over 6, so it's popping.
Yeah, they cannot build that into a breaker, you know. And some of these are forward panel mount, and some of them are not. Jukeboxes use these. That's why I stock these. I rigged a few things up for testing. Oh yeah, here. This little rigging is a blown fuse. Yeah. This is a circuit breaker. If you're trying to find something wrong in a circuit, you can snap this in and keep playing with it until you find out what's wrong. I very seldom use it because I just don't ever...
That's the craziest thing
I don't never need... Mick built this for me.
Thanks, Mick.
I don't really ever need to resort to this. I don't generally have a problem that I would ever need this for. I didn't want to hurt his feelings. I took it and I said, yeah, okay.
Well, now you can remember and buy it.
Yeah, but you'll find little patches like this. He gave me a bunch of them.
Oh, my.
Yeah, here's a different style one. Electronic guys like to play. Frankly, I'm more direct. I want to get to the problem. I don't have...
Well, yeah, we don't have time to play.
No, I don't have time to play with...
I'm surprised we have time for these videos.
I don't have time to play with trinkety stuff like that. It's a neat idea, yes, that's fine. And then let's move on. That's what I think.
I'm glad you endorsed my add a leaf to the relay for the under cabinet lighting on the haunted house.
It's a clean, nice idea.
Okay, well, I come up with one every once in a while.
The only problem is you were looking for a fastener that's not made.
Yeah, that's nothing new either. Okay, so we covered the small fuses, which are the AGCs.
Yes.
And we covered the big fuses, slow and fast, which are the MDLs
Yes.
and
MTAs, MDLs. MTA is another designation. MDL is your time delay fuse.
We talked about overfusing. Generally, don't do it unless you're going by, whatever the minimal amount over is on an older device.
Like everything else, though, the reason they came out with these was size.
Yeah.
No room on the circuit board anymore, so make things smaller, so they did.
So if you're blowing a 3 and you can't find a problem and you put a 3.5 in and it works, okay. If you're putting a 4 in and it's blowing, well, go back and search. You still got a problem somewhere. You got a coil that's starting to short. Or
with the advent of the new fuses, the old ones are only available in certain steps, certain sizes. You generally won't find. Well, Gottlieb used to use 6.25 amp fuses. You generally can't find that. So you either go to 6 or 7. They use 6.75 in some of their games. That's not made anymore.
that sounds like something that Gottlieb would do.
But not only them, there are some other fuse sizes that are just not made anymore. So you have to round off, up or down.
Okay, so in multimeter, you can test a fuse by just doing a continuity test on it.
Yeah, you can pull out of the fuse holder and do a continuity test on it.
We didn't do that. Maybe someday we'll go over the basics of a multimeter.
You can't be tricked by sight. Fuses may look good by sight and still be blown, because on rare occasions it will trip the wire. You can't even. This is such.
Yeah,
a
and behind
wire.
the sheath.
Yeah, in here. It's supposed to trip out here, and generally they do, but sometimes they'll break here. Sometimes they mechanically break here. Not they just break off because they're
don't blow, they break.
Right. These are not vacuum. This is just glass to protect the wire. They're not vacuum sealed or anything.
Really?
No. It's just to protect the wire. There are some fuses which are used in explosion areas of certain electronic equipment that have a white appearance to them. This is filled with glass beads.
Oh.
This prevents it from scattering when it blows. Scattering the inside element against the glass and cracking the glass. If you're in an explosion area where you're working with propane, you want this fused. You don't want to use one like this and take the chance that when it blows, it cracks the glass and then emits a spark and blows up something. Those are not used in the games. There's no hazardous environment. I just happen to have that. But I don't even have all the fuses that are made here. There are fuses called Pinko Fuses. And they are little resistor looking things with stripes on them, and there's a color code to them. They're usually bright green, and they're about a 1/4 to 1/8 amp resistor size. They're called Pinko Fuses. They're used in electronics, mostly on boards. They solder in. They look like a resistor. They're not. They're fuses.
So you see them in pinball
I see them in WAS.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
here we go with new
Pinko
electronics.
Fuses, yep, that is sub miniature. That is way more miniature than this.
All you old guys better get up to speed.
But you need to solder. This stuff is all snap-in. You don't need to solder this stuff. Generally, fuses are made to be easily replaced. No soldering involved. With regard to the holder, of course. But the snap-in fuses is what most of your devices are made with here. But
Okay, covered the minis. We covered the values and overfusing. I still think we should do a multimeter one someday. We're not going to do that next week, but maybe sometime you'll do a basics of a multimeter.
yeah,
And
sure.
I'll sleep through it while we're filming because
I would say the handiest one to have would be this, a Fluke 115.
All right, well we'll come back to that.
There are many brands and there are preferences.
I'll
but
show you the ones I got. They're really like Harbor Freight brand.
This will do everything that you need to service coin-op equipment. You go too much bigger than this and you're into HVAC, which is not what we do with this stuff. There are too many things you don't need on the meter. You can get into electronics, like for radio, TV, well, TV, whatever, electronics. That's too much for what we do here. This is a basic meter and it lends. I don't even use most of the stuff here. This lends itself to
Yeah, well, we don't test a whole lot of stuff, to be honest with you. If you look at it and it's bad, you throw it out and move on. There isn't a whole lot of testing. I mean, it used to be you'd sit at the circuit board station and fix the boards and go through all kinds of that goofy stuff.
Yeah, that's eliminated anymore.
But now with the aftermarket picking up with the new boards, there's just no sense in it.
It just doesn't pay. No, it don't pay.
Can it still be done? Yeah.
Is the reliability there?
Yeah,
maybe not.
Well, you know, if you're a homeowner or a hobbyist and it's something you want to play with, okay. But you know, we're in business with this stuff, and you know, you're 100 miles away. What are you going to do? A circuit board repair 100 miles away, and then be married to the thing? Now you're responsible for another component failure on it, because even worse yet, you fix something on it, and now that upped the load on some other old components, and they fail. And 3 days later, the guy's calling you saying, my machine failed again. Come up here and fix it now.
Yeah.
Put new stuff in.
Not good to patch it. No.
Yeah.
You know, years ago when there wasn't the case and there was no Jim Knight and there was no Pinball Lizard and Great Plains Electronics.
Well, that's what you had to do. It's just what you had. Well, and of course you did forward.
Great Lakes.
Forward work then too, which was I know from experience that component A, B, and C, if they're not failed now, they're overdue to fail. So you do some forward work, you replace a component. Now you're still doing that kind of stuff, like when you're doing these mega touches and stuff like that.
As far as pinball goes, there's a myriad of people. You've got Dave at Alltech, you got Dave Humphrey at Nywomf for Gottlieb's. Of course, the Alltech is a good board for your early solid state Bally's. And you've got Pinball PCBs, which does the early Williams, all of it.
It's almost all available at this point. I mean, there's just little spots, little spots that are are still evading them.
You've got Marco's Pin Score thing. Yeah, there's pin. You got X Pin. There's just a lot of them, and if you know which one you want, it's a good bet to just replace them.
And it's not because it's not. Again, it's not because it's not fixable. It's just from a time and reliability standpoint. It's a no-brainer. If you love your game and you're going to keep it, put the new stuff in there. It makes me laugh when I see these clowns resoldering all the pins on some old piece of crap board that's on borrowed time, might last 10 minutes. It's just not the way to go. And we'll showcase that on the Haunted House here. We're going to try to shoot the Haunted House for Sunday, Ray. And I think are there any boards in that are not new? Probably not too many. You got the new power supply, a new MPU, new driver board.
Wow.
You did the update on all the pop bumper boards. We'll
the only original
show
one,
what that's about.
Would be the sound card.
Well, I'll step on that. We'll put a new one in there. You got anything else about fuses?
No.
Okay.
I would say.
Well, this one's really short, and I thought it was really dull. So give me a brief overview of Hobo with Shotgun.
Oh my. Rutger Hauer, or however you pronounce his last name, would probably wishes he was never in that. Yeah. Bad movie. Don't watch that.
Okay, folks. Next week, what do you got anything in mind for next week there, Ray?
Watch The Lady Killers, though. That's funny.
The Lady Killers.
Oh, The Lady Killers.
Ray's recommending The Lady Killers.
Yeah, Tom Hanks is in it. It's fun.
But unrecommending
Hobo with Shotgun.
Hobo with Shotgun. And I can tell you that just the other day I saw Smokey and the Bandit 3.
No.
I didn't know there was a Smokey and the Bandit 3. And now I wish that I still didn't know. Oh my God, it was horrible.
Yeah, well, next week, I don't know. What are we going to do next week?
Well, I mentioned multimeter. I don't know.
Oh, I know. We got to do what Jimmy says.
Well, you want to go over pop bumpers?
Yes, yeah, we're going to do pop bumpers.
Okay, and we can fix the ones on his Elvira Party Monsters.
Yeah, we're going to show people what's involved and what to do with them.
Oh, and the difference between
it's a pretty neat mechanical device.
the difference between the two what do they call them? The rings that look the same, but they're not quite. One's what 1/16 of an inch shorter than the other.
Yeah, there are
and if you put the wrong one in, it'll work, sort of.
Sort of. They're
And you'll scratch your head. What's wrong here? I put a new ring in there, and it's
no
wrong.
ball action.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to watch. There's two different lengths, and then there's a third one with pegs coming out the top for the bally with the caps.
Okay, well, don't tell them all about it now. Save some for next week. Anybody you want to say hi to this week? Say hi to somebody.
I got that.
Pick somebody.
Pardon?
Pick somebody to say hi to that's watching.
Hi, Jimmy.
No, you can't. You can't fall back on Jimmy every time.
Hey,
How about Chris at Coin Taker? I'm picking
Chris
that.
Marquette. Yeah, I was just talking to him.
You were just talking to him.
We got a shout out to Chris.
He likes your videos, but I gave you that one, so now you got to give me another one.
Another one.
You tell me. Every day you come back in the shop and you say, I was at such and such servicing, and they were watching our video and laughing at you picking on the goofballs up the street or whatever. Come on, you got somebody.
Melissa.
Oh. Okay, well, Ray's short on jokes today. That's all we got. Tune in on Sunday for the
I'm tired. We just packed 3 machines.
Yeah, shipped 3 games today. Attack from Mars out of here. Circus Voltaire out of here. BSD out of here. I'm tired too.
Shout out to Russ Gentile.
You know, I don't know if he watches these videos.
Don't he watch these videos?
You know, I send him videos of his own game and he watches them. Russ, if you're out there, you're now obligated to say something, and we're dragging this out. Tune in on Sunday for the Haunted House. Tune in next week for Ray Says Pop Bumpers. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you watching and look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks.
Beauty.
Hi, we hope you've enjoyed this video. If you haven't already subscribed, what are you waiting for? Want to know what's coming next? Go like us on Facebook right now. You can keep up to date with all of us here at the shop and what we've been up to. Thank you for watching.